The Legend and Desire are the two latest smartphones from HTC and are both very impressive gadgets. They may look quite different but are both fairly similar to use. Both run the Android operating system and have HTC's Sense graphical interface laid over the top. They both have multi-touch displays, so you can use multiple fingers to pinch and zoom in on web pages and images, as well as flick and slide through screens and applications. The Legend is the slightly smaller of the two. The bottom of the phone juts out slightly, and it has a metal casing, which feels noticeably nice to hold. Its screen is smaller and is of a lower resolution than Desire's, and it's less powerful. But in use, it's difficult to notice any real difference between the two, as on both phones the display updates quickly when sliding through the various screens, video plays perfectly, and there is little lag. The Desire is almost identical to Google's own handset, the Nexus One. It looks big, but the handset is so thin, it fits very nicely in a pocket. There are very few differences in operation between the Desire and the Legend though. The main benefit of the Desire is the larger high-resolution display, which means videos look really good and makes it slightly easier to read text on websites. As on most phones, the battery, SIM card and microSD card slots on the HTC Desire are accessed by removing the back of the case, then putting them in. On the Legend though, there's a neat flap which pulls out at the bottom, and you just slot the components inside the phone. Both are operated using physical buttons as well as by tapping and pressing the display. Right at the bottom is an optical sensor to swipe through the various screens. And on the left are buttons to control the volume. And at the top is a power button which also puts the phone to sleep. There are another 4 buttons below the screen. And of these, the home button on the far left is the one that is used the most, as it returns the user to the main screen. Next to it is a menu button which brings up a menu with options specific to whatever program is in view at the time. For example, pressing it when browsing the contacts list shows options to add, view or delete contacts. But when browsing photos, the user is presented with a completely different set of options. There's also a back button and a button to search the web using Google. There's also the usual headphone socket at the top, and both phones are charged with a standard micro USB cable. That's handy because you might need to consider buying an extra cable to charge the phone when away from the house. An issue with both handsets is the battery life, which really doesn't last particularly long when they're used heavily. When we left the phones on standby, they only sipped power and lasted well over 2 days. But when using either phone constantly to watch video, take photos or surf the web when on the move, the battery drains a lot quicker. This is of course an issue for many smartphones, but it's especially noticeable on these handsets because it's so addictive to play around with all the applications, toys and gimmicks that make up Android with HTC Sense. For example, you can customize the interface as much as you like, removing or adjusting nearly any aspect of it, from the so-called widgets that are placed over the screens, such as the clock and contacts list, to the background and various tones. For example, if the look of the standard HTC clock widget isn't to your taste, it can be replaced with a completely different one. And since Android is made by Google, Google Mail works excellently, as does Google Maps, which can now be used for turn-by-turn navigation while driving too. There are also lots of free other applications available on the Android market. We like both these handsets a lot. They're similarly priced, although some mobile networks don't sell both phones. The main differences between the two are largely cosmetic, and aside from any price differences, choosing between them is less about the technical details than deciding whether you want the experience of Android with HTC Sense in a pocket-sized handset or a larger device.